what we want to find here is ways to get into the system. So we want to attack the server, not the client. So we can try things such as SQL injection. So for example, I can just try to run like a philosophy to end the current SQL statement, or like 1 = 1, which is definitely true, and then try to comment out the rest of the things in the line, and there you go, we got into the administrative web console. So in this case, I want to have a reverse shell, so I want it to connect back to me. So I have to be the one listening. So remember to have the -e before your shell and see where it works. Yeah, you can see over here that it has successfully connected from the web server that is running on port 80. We have managed to reverse shell back to our own attacker machine through the use of the cat. Oh, there's a typo, so uname-a. You can find out the operating system that's running over here. So it's actually this is the version number. So this is for Linux kernel 2.6 and lesser than 2.6.19. We can see that this is a exploit. Go back to our shell and I'm going to paste it here, and boom, ID, I'm root. Hello, my name is Wenbing. Welcome to my channel. This is a series of step-by-step CTF walkthrough for various VulnHub boxes that is suitable for beginners. Today, I'm going to continue to walk you through the process of hacking another one of the most popular boxes from VulnHub, Kioptrix Level 1.1. In the previous walkthroughs, we went through two different methods for hacking Kioptrix Level 1, and this is a continuation from it. Kioptrix Level 1 is the first box in the Kioptrix series, and Kioptrix Level 1.1 is the second box. In Kioptrix Level 1, the attacker ran an exploit and immediately gained root access in the victim's box. This is because the exploited service, such as the Samba service or the Apache web server, they were running as root. So, what about Kioptrix Level 1.1? Will it be the same, or will it require us to perform privilege escalation to become root after we gain a low privilege foothold in the system? Well, we shall see. Let's get started. Alright, so similarly to what we have did in the previous walkthrough, you just have to download the image from the website shown in the description to set it up on your local lab. So after you have booted up using software like VirtualBox or VMware, you can actually see this screen. It says, welcome to Kioptrix Level 2 Penetration and Assessment Environment. The objective of this game is to acquire root access to this machine. So it is essentially the same welcome screen as the previous Kioptrix Level 1. Alright, so and that's it about this Kioptrix box. We are not going to do anything to it. At this point, we'll just keep it running so that we can attack it from our attacker machine. So let's jump back to our Kali Linux machine. As a good practice, we should always run ifconfig on the machine when you start conducting any testing to know where is your IP address, so that you know which subnet do you belong to. So in this case, I know that my IP address is 212.166.2.102. Subnet mask is 255.255.255.0. Right. So now I'm going to run a net discover, sudo net discover, and then I'm going to identify where is the machine that I'm supposed to be targeting. Alright. So at this point, you can see that very likely this is my target because it's using a VMware vendor. Alright, so I'm going to do a mmap scan to identify what services are running on this machine. I'm going to run mmap ssv to find the version as well, and then I'm not going to ping the host. I'm going to insert the IP address of my target and make it run slightly faster, and I'm going to scan for all the ports that is available on this host. So it is very important to take note that not to miss out this -p- because in this case I want to scan every single service port to find out what are the potential vulnerabilities on this host. So I do not want to just run the default settings of only 1000 ports. That would cause me to miss out something that is really important, unless you have some restraints, such as you cannot have enough time to run a full scan, because essentially it will be testing all the 65535 ports. So it may take some time if it is in a real environment, but in this case it run quite quickly because it is running inside my own personal test lab. All right, let's take a look at the results. So as you can see, there is a lot of service ports that are running, such as the SSH service, the HTTP service, the Apache HTTP web server, and there's many different services are running. What we want to do now is that we are going to look for the one that is most attacker friendly, such as the HTTP web server that's running on port 80. All right, so we can simply go to Firefox and let's navigate to it. Okay. All right, so the moment you go to the load this host on your browser, by default it will be loading on port 80, which is this one, the port 80. All right, so you will be immediately seeing this remote system administration login. Do I have any account? Like usually people will like to run admin because that's most of the default credentials for most of the software out there, right? It doesn't work. So instead of brute forcing, you can try to attempt some attacks on this form. Some people might be interested in running client-side attacks, such as cross-site scripting or something, but actually I think this is not very interesting at this point, because we want to log in into a system. So we are attacking the server, we are not attacking a client. So having a cross-site scripting, even if you have it in this form, is not interesting. What we want to find here is ways to get into the system. So we want to attack the server, not the client. So we can try things such as SQL injection. So for example, I can just try to run like a philosophy to end the current SQL statement, or like 1 = 1, which is definitely true, and then try to comment out the rest of the things in the line, and there you go, we got into the administrative web console. All right, so what does it do? As you can see from this this interface, it says that to ping a machine on the network. So this is what it does. So my assumption to it would be that the moment you enter IP address, they will try to ping the machine. So in this case, I know that I can try to ping right to 168.2. Any machine over here, so I can ping to .1, and if I submit it, what will happen? So it actually tried to conduct a ping. It ran the command, the ping command on this IP address .1, and they have the results. All right, so now this is pretty interesting, because it seems that it is able to run commands on Kioptrix itself. So can I run other commands like cat etc host? Can I run this? Nope, it will just directly print out whatever that I typed. So what can I do? Can I run cross-site scripting like script alert document.domain? Yeah, it can run cross-site scripting, because it will directly render whatever that is being entered into the form. But like I said previously, having cross-site scripting attack over here is not very interesting, because you have to attack an authenticated user, and then you have to steal their cookie and stuff like that. So anyway, you have already gotten access to get into the admin console, so you don't really need to steal the cookies to gain access, unless you want to do impersonation, but that is a different story. All right, so in this case, what can you do? So when you encounter this kind of situation, you can you can try to still do a legitimate ping, all right, still a legitimate ping, but you can try to use a semicolon to chain commands together. Like if you can you can see if I run it locally, I'll be like, okay, ping this and like this. Okay, then what I can do is I can do ID, but in this case it will not work because the ping will continuously run whatever unless I terminate it. But if you look at here carefully, after I terminate the ping, it will run the ID command. All right. Okay. So a better example is if I do I clear this. I do a unim dash a semicolon ID semicolon who am I. See, unim dash a ID and who am I. So all of this is being run together. So we can try this method. So can I do something else like ID who am I? Can I run this? See, I can actually do that. I have the ID and I have my who am I. Alright, so what I can do now is that I can make use of this this service, this function to spawn a reverse shell of my own machine. We know that it's running as Apache, so it will be able to give us a low privilege shell, low privilege reverse shell that can let us continue attacking this machine by performing privilege escalation. So now I can run a netcat. Okay, netcat, what it does is that it is basically you can use it to connect or to listen for inbound traffic. So in this case, I want to have a reverse shell, so I want it to connect back to me. So I have to be the one listening. So I will run this. L for listener, N for numeric addresses, and port. I want to listen on port 444. Alright, so I'll run on port 4444, and after that, alright, looks like it's listening. Oh wait, I want it to be verbose, so I will have to cancel it, and let's run double V. Okay, so now I am listening on port 4444. Okay, let's clear this and run it again so it's nicer. Okay, listening on port 4444. Okay, now I will go to the vulnerable service over here, and I will try to connect it back to my netcat listener. All right, so what I can do here is that I need to know what kind of binaries does it have. Does it have netcat as well? So what I can do now is I can do 192.168.2.1, and then I'm going to copy this. Okay, I'm going to chain it with ls on user bin. All right, and see what I have it, what binaries I have. All right, so do I have netcat? User bin. Looks like I don't have netcat. All right, so what else can I try? User bin, user local bin. Okay, let's see if this one have any tools that I can use. You see, I have ncf and netcat. They are stored in this user local bin. So what I can do now is I can use netcat. All right, so instead of ls, I can just try running this and -h submit and see what it does. So is it really netcat or something that is named the same? So if you look at this is horribly similar to whatever we have just saw on my machine. Netcat connect to somewhere, listen to inbound. So right now we know that this is legitimately a netcat on this machine. So I'm going to let it spawn a reverse shell back to my my device. Okay, so in order to do that, I'm going to point it to my machine, directly, and instead of using listener, I'm going to just directly connect. But I can use this -e to spawn a program. But do I know what shell do I have? Do I have any shell? So because I'm not sure, so I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to do ls user bin and see what it whether it has any sh any shell binary. So sh, all right, you can see that there isn't any sh. All right, so what about bin? Okay, what about bin /bin? Is there any shell here? Definitely there will be a shell somewhere. So yeah, you can see there is a shell is here. It's in the user, the binary is the default location anyway. So this is just to show that you can actually do enumeration on in this kind of environment. You need not have a proper shell. You can actually use this to perform remote code execution. So right now what you want to do is you already know that netcat is over here, so you know that it is legitimately netcat. So what you can do right now is you can copy this, and you can come over here to start writing your command to reverse shell back to your attacker machine. So in this case, you can paste this here. So netcat, and then you know that for netcat to run, you have to after netcat you will input the host name, and then you have the port. All right, so this is the command to connect to somewhere. So netcat, then the host, then the port. So what you can do is that you can go back here, netcat, then the host, what is my IP address? I'm lazy to type, so I can come up here and IP config, and this is my attacker machine, and then I can paste it here. So this is the port is 4444, and then I'm going to run this. So over here you can see that -e is the program to execute after connect. So if you are not sure, you can also always run it here. So that's h. As you can see over here, -e file name program to execute after connect. This is dangerous. Yeah, it's very dangerous because it can run reverse shell. So let's go back to our listener and see where it works. All right, so remember to have the -e before your shell and see where it works. All right, let's submit, and yeah, you can see over here that it has successfully connect. All right, you have a reverse shell, the connection to this is my machine, and then the source is from 101, which is Kioptrix Level 2. Okay, so just to be sure, I can run ID and Apache. Remember just now we run ID and who am I, so it's exactly the same. So from the web server that is running on port 80, we have managed to reverse shell back to our own attacker machine through the use of the cat. Okay, now that we know that we have already gained a low privilege shell on this Kioptrix Level 2 machine, I'm running as Apache, not root. So what can we do? We can perform further enumeration, such as knowing where are we, okay, and then we can also try to search for files, any files that's over here. You can even cat etc password. It's like you can basically do, you are already on a server. You are you can run commands already as a low privilege user. But what we really want to do is that we want to perform privilege escalation. So to do that, we can try the very first method. So in oscp, we learn many different ways to perform privilege escalation. There are ways like you can search for any binary that is a SUID. They can, or you can look for the sequence of different type of binary that you can there's really a lot of ways. But in this case, the most basic way that you should think of is whether there is any kernel exploit. Any exploit you can run because of a very old operating systems, you can directly get root from running it. So there is some project that people created that is like just get root, and then the moment you try to run it, they will try to compile a bunch of exploits on the machine and run them. Another type is like they already pre-compile everything, and then you will just go in and just / run that get root, and then you get root without even knowing what exactly works and what didn't work. So some people like to use that kind of things, but a word of caution is that running a wrong exploit may cause some the system to crash, and then in real life situation you only have one chance. So the moment it crashes, that's it. You can't exploit it anymore until someone boot it up and did not realize what happened. Alright, so over here what we can do is we can run uname-a. Oh, that's a typo. So uname-a, you can find out the operating system that's running over here. So it's actually this is the version number. You can copy this and you can go to Firefox and try to search for it. Linux exploit. Alright, there you go. The first link seems to be the one. So this is for Linux kernel 2.6 and lesser than 2.6.19. So our target is 2.6.9. So will it work? We are not sure, but let's try it out. Alright, so we will have to copy this link. Alright, and then I'm going to come over to my machine. I'm going to try to download it. So I can go to search var www html. Okay, so I'm going to download the file over here. This the exploit sudo wget. Alright, so I'm going to see that yeah, this is the exploit. Alright, we have downloaded it. So how do we run it is that we have to gcc, then something like this. We have to run it, and then after that you will be able to privilege escalate into root. So I'm not sure whether it will work or not, but it will very likely work. So I'm going to just change it to maybe just exploit.c. Okay, I need permission again. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to run service apache to start over here. When I do the 168.2.im102, and then exploit.c. Does it work? Yeah, see, I can download it. So I'm going to just move this to trash and close this. So now I can go back to here, and then I can actually come to the vulnerable machine and try to download this exploit. So I'm going to do wget and try to paste it here. No permission, so I should probably cd to temp pwd. Okay, ls. Okay, wget this file, download it over here, so we can save the exploit file on the temp. Okay, ls, and alright, so how do we compile this exploit? Do we have gcc dash help? Yes, there is gcc here. So with gcc we are able to we'll be able to compile it locally on the victim's machine. So why is it good that we compile exploit on the victim's machine rather than our own machine? Is that if we compile it at the victim's machine, we solve a lot of dependency issues, like whether is it have any dependencies required, or the kernel level. Is like if you compile an exploit that is supposed to run on Ubuntu. If you compile it on a Debian based distro, it may not run properly on Ubuntu. So this is something that people that is working on oscp certification should take note, because some people try to compile it on their own machine, and then when they try to execute it on the victim's machine, it did not work. So it's for you to experiment and find out about it. So that's the whole point of I mean, like, that's one of the reason why people participated in the oscp lab and try to hack as many machines as possible, because there are a lot of different things that they can face that you can't find this kind of experience in real life. Yeah, so back to the command. So what command do we run? We can see that this is exploit, right? So usually in any exploit that you download from exploitdb, or I think for most of the internet, I believe that they always have this kind of information, like what is it, what CV is this, discovered by who, and then the instructions of how to run it will always be in the exploit. They will always teach you how to run it. So in this case, this is the command to run. After that, you will become root because of this ring 0 exploit. It can perform a local privilege escalation. Local means that you have to be in the victim's machine to run this exploit. You cannot run it remotely. So that's why you have to be inside the machine with low privilege in order to exploit this. So this is the command that we should be running. But you know, the shell over here is quite broken. You can't really backspace and stuff. So I'm just going to write it on my machine. I'm going to write it here, and then I'm going to copy and paste it over. So this -o means that is your output, the file that you're going to output to it. So I'm just going to name it as boom. All right, boom. Just boom. Okay, so this is our exploit's name, which is exploit it. Okay, exploit.c, and I'm going to run /boom after it's done. All right, so let's try this. Copy selection, go back to our shell, and I'm going to paste it here, and boom. ID, I'm root. All right, so I'm root, and with that we have come to an end of this walkthrough. So thank you for watching. I hope this video is useful to you. If you like this video, please like and subscribe.